COVID hit, dropped out, sleeping on my buddy's couch, found my wife, found high ticket sales, and then kind of built up from there.
What did you do before?
Before high ticket sales, I'm selling construction in California. Construction's an interesting one because you don't get paid till after the construction's done. So I did $750,000 in like a month and a half. And then I was like, all right, where's my paycheck? And they're like, yeah, you'll get it in like 12 months. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's the worst, like seeing that big money right in front of your face, but you have to wait and you're like, okay, good, but I have bills right now. I mean, what's happening?
Exactly.
Jared, welcome to the pod today. I'm very happy to have you. You're all about self-improvement. I know you're running quite a lot. You're committing yourself to improving every single day. Today we get to know your personal side, also how you started sales, what you learned along the way, and how that has changed your life. Jared, welcome to today's pod.
Thanks, Alex. Pleasure to be here. Excited to be chatting about business today.
Let's dive into a little bit of what brought you to business in the first place. Just very broad, very general.
Yeah, I would say, just like my parents owned their own business. I've kind of always been around business, but then when COVID hit, I dropped out of college and just needed to find a way to make money. And I knew that working 9 to 5 wasn't for me, and so that's kind of when the hustle and bustle started, and found my way into construction sales and other routes of making money, and then found my way into high ticket sales, and that was kind of like the start of business, was more just through sales and entrepreneurship.
Nice. So early on, you found sales for yourself. You said it so nonchalantly. You said like, yeah, I kind of went into sales and then high ticket sales. I believe everybody's curious about like how do you get into that in the first place? Like, what was your first touch point with, let's say, also door to door sales?
Yeah, so it's all through networking. One of my buddies, that I was staying on his couch. He was just like, "Look, I have my owner here for the company." We went out golfing, and he was like, "Look, I'll hire you on the spot." And that was kind of like the rest of it was history after that. Went to dinner with the team, ended up meeting my wife at that dinner for the company, and then just started door to door. And they basically were just like, "Look, I was in LA at the time, and they're like, look, San Diego, our San Diego market, nobody's successful." And I was like, "Great, I'm gonna go and be successful in San Diego, and I'm gonna go and prove everyone wrong." And just got my start there and started doing very well, very successful. Did about $250,000 very quickly, and then really realized that in construction you don't get paid till later on. And so that's when a lot of it was just based off networking. One of the part owners of the company invited me out to Utah for a Friendsgiving, and then one of his buddies was launching an Airbnb company. And so I think a lot of sales and getting into the high ticket space is really a lot of people stumbling into it through their network and through maybe seeing an ad or something online. But a lot of it is through the just networking. And the saying goes, your network is your net worth. And I fully believe in that. So just always focus on growing the network.
Man. Yeah, connections, vitamin B, just getting to know people is so important. Something that so many people overlook, even when it comes to like personal client acquisition. Even if you do sales for yourself, understanding how to approach people and that people are where like people are everything. Attention equals money. People equal connections. Connections equal your next opportunity. And so the earlier somebody understands that, the faster they get to where they want to be. Like all the biggest opportunities of my life. Every time, even when I still was working a job, right? I was referred by a friend. So it's amazing. Like what you just described sounded a little bit of a mix in between like Wolf of Wall Street, like, hey, show me your pay stub and I work for you right now. So they hide you on the spot, and then like Hitch the Date Doctor mixed in because you also found your wife there, which is amazing, man.
Yeah, yeah. It was awesome. One of the things that I always tell people is like with your network, even from like a young age, is like as soon as you get a cell phone, start putting in like the contact information where you met them at, because that's like in 4 or 5 years you might need to be able to call on those people, and you need to understand where they're at and where they're coming from. And so being able to make those connections early on is very important.
Interesting. That actually brings us to a very interesting topic because I believe I certainly know that I was the type to meet a lot of people, But then I wasn't necessarily the type to really contain all that information, all that knowledge in one specific place. Let's say like a Rolodex in some sort of way. What is your approach? Like, do you once you meet people, do you immediately put that down in your notes, or what's your approach? How do you handle that information and make sure that you retain that what's important, not only for you but also for that person, because you can be the connection, the bridge maker for another opportunity for them, which is also equally amazing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, just let me know your process.
Great question, Alex. So, first thing I do is I always go based on how I met them. Like whether it be in a company, whether it be at a store, whatever it is, like I'll do the first last name parentheses and be like Walmart or be a certain company that I met them at or whatever it might be. Because then when you go to reach out to someone, the first thing that you do is like, hey, this is Jared. Remember we worked together. Remember we met at, and so it's like that lead in message. And so that's how I categorize every single person. And then if there's something that's interesting, then I'll put that in the notes of where it's like, hey, I might need to know this for later on, or oh, they do something unique. Great, I'll move that to in the notes. But the most important thing is how can you introduce yourself back to that person? And it's typically how you met. So that's the most important part that I realized in like that Rolodex factor is being able to just put like, "Hey, this is where we met. You remember me? Great." And then you can kinda take the conversation from there.
Lovely, lovely. And you do that? Do you do that like immediately after meeting somebody? Let's say you meet somebody today. Do you just put that down, or do they have to reach like a certain threshold where you're like, oh, actually have to think about this person again, or we met a second time. When was the first time that we met? What's like your modus operandi when it comes to that?
Yeah, as soon as I put their name into my phone, however I met them, wherever I met them from, it goes in. I still have some of my best friends of where I met them. Some of my business partners now, I still have their name and then where I met them. And they're like, "Bro, come on, change it." And I'm like, It's
Yeah.
just it's how I know you, dude." How it is.
Yeah, man, love that, love that. Yeah, it's if you were to look at it through my phone, I have the weirdest names in there because it's just to make it memorable. Because if you meet a lot of people, you're gonna have to, if you meet 1,000 people at Walmart, you gotta find a way to kind of distinguish them. So yeah, it's funny. I have one of my best friends. She's still in my phone as her name and then limousine, because that's actually how we get to meet each other. So yeah, and she says the same thing. Like, why do you save me under that name? And I'm like, that's where we met. So pretty cool, pretty cool. Okay, let's go back real quick to your, so you got the opportunity to do sales, right? You did door to door sales. Now, did you have any sales experience before that?
The only sales experience that I had was selling my parents' furniture. Like my parents had their own business making wine barrel furniture, and I used to go to like home and garden shows and go to like spend my weekends working on selling their furniture, and that was kind of like the beginning of it. And um, through growing up, I've always known that I was good at sales. And I just didn't really know how to put that into like a job or into a position until I got older. And then that's when I found the door to door and really put that into more of a position and a job in that factor.
Interesting. Man, we definitely have to dive into what's important when it comes to sales, and I do have some questions prepared. Actually, we can dive into them a bit later. But I'm curious, like, did you notice yourself that you're good at that, or did you get outside feedback where somebody told you, like, "Hey, man, you're good at this. Why are you not making a living off of that?"
I've always been good at it. I knew that I was good at it. People naturally love to talk to me. Would naturally like take to what I was saying, and I feel like everything that you do in life is sales, and that's really when I learned it. But um, when I really started in door to door, they were like, "Hey, like you're actually really good at this," and that's when they really started to push me to do more and put more information in front of me. Really started to build my sales philosophy, as you could say, out and I believe that everybody's good at sales. It just depends on what you're selling and how you go about it, and do you have the proper philosophy to actually help you in sales?
Nice. I love that. The philosophy, understanding what is what an interaction actually means, right? It's I encountered that in my self-improvement days when I did like a lot of social interactions to kind of see, okay, how what is my the impression that I leave on people? How can I make that better? You know, how can I be better a better conversationalist? Like how can I better, my social skills altogether? And just having a different framework if you go into a situation, like almost everything, like this FBI negotiator, Chris Voss, he says like everything in life is a negotiation, right? And also in psychology, you call it manipulating. But manipulating is a very neutral term because it's not like it's nothing positive or negative. Like if I say hi, I'm manipulating you already because I expect you to do something. Like hi, you say hi as well, right? And then you kind of pay attention to the tonality. Like how are you saying that? Are you saying like hi, or are you saying hi? Are you more timid or are you very energetic? Like hey, what's up? And like are you trying to understanding then the mirror neurons, how they work, that your emotions kind of reflect to the other person. So it's very like it's a lot of things, very intricate. Like just the thought of it brings me in so many different areas. And it all starts with understanding that, for me it was at least, like failure is not failure, is nothing bad, is the potential to grow, right? And so you said this was for you, um, like the philosophy behind it, this was the accelerator for you. Was there any particular thing that you kind of reframed in your mind to get better at this or to make the best use of your interactions?
Yeah, I think one that you touched on briefly was, like, rejection, getting no's. I really reframed in my mind that me getting a no isn't a no towards me, it's a no towards them and their success, and so when I was able to detach rejection away from sales, that's really when I saw a huge increase in my ability, because everybody's going to say no. It just depends on, are you selling them or are they selling you? And what happened was I really indoctrinated myself into really two key philosophies. One is the straight line theory, where it's like, hey, from point A to point B, what's the fastest way we can get there? And then going through and understanding that you can't go just on the straight line. There has to be conversation, but how much of that conversation can you control? And can you control the whole guidelines and the framework of the conversation? And then that's where it led into, probably the biggest, helping factor that I had in sales was reading a book and actually studying a book called Pitch Anything. And I've read that book maybe 60 to 80 times because it has so many in-depth, just like of those little like mirroring of the little nuances on how to do sales and how to control the framework. And once you understand how you can control your framework and anytime that you talk to someone, you can actually guide the conversation wherever you want or be able to guide that interaction however you want it to. And a good example of that is very simple. I was at the grocery store the other night, and the cash register was this, um, chatting up with my wife and I, and was asking about like our life and asking about our dog, and everything that she said was like, "Oh, you guys have a dog? Oh man, I bet it's a lot of work." I'm like, "No, actually, it's not a lot of work. It's a great joy of our life." And just being able to control, like, someone else is selling me on what they believe and I'm just going, "Nope, that's not how I feel about it, and this is what I believe." And so it's in every little interaction that's actually a sale that can then determine your day and determine your mood just based on little human interactions like that. It's not even necessarily like, she's selling me on a product or I'm selling someone else on a product. It's really selling each other in just the day-to-day mundane life on how you want to live your life. Because if someone else says, "Oh, man, that's tough," and you go, "Oh, yeah, it is." Because oftentimes we wanna agree with people. Well, guess what? That thing that you didn't believe was tough is now tough. And so sales helped me control my environment and being able to fully understand like, "Hey, this is what I want out of life, and this is how I see life, and I'm not gonna let anybody affect or anyone come in and, cause, like, an infection in a way of how I'm feeling." And that's what sales was able to do for me was really be able to give me control back over my day-to-day life.
Nice. It's that's an interesting part, like people and how they can influence you. And I believe once you have the understanding that your environment has such a great impact on you, on your mentality, on who you are, on how you feel, um, you understand that you have to curate that circle, right? And um, if you don't have the luxury of curating that circle, or if you are in an environment where you, for example, encounter conversations like these, right? People might I'm pretty sure they don't think anything bad of it, right? They just say some stuff, but they don't understand like, okay, this is negative, like this is not propelling, good stuff into your life. So how do you deal with it? Like you said already that they're trying to sell you on an idea, but I believe in that specific area, many people are a bit afraid of confrontation, right? So there's a way of saying like, uh-huh, okay, cool, and then you just move on because you don't want to expend your energy towards that. Then there's the arguing, saying like, hey, actually no, I don't believe that. And funnily enough, oftentimes you find when you do that that the other person kind of goes back like, oh yeah, you're right, actually no, it's not really, yeah. So it's interesting, and now all of a sudden you made this like sale, right? You sold them on your reality, which is amazing. But yeah, how do you deal that where, because I'm sure everybody knows one or two people that just get near them, and if you can, I would say, like, just let me just give that question to you. How do you deal with those kind of people?
Yeah, I think there's an idea of the sphere of influence, and when someone's on the outside of that sphere, it's very easy to deal with it because you just have, like, your bubble, and you're like, "Hey, nope, like, I'm just gonna, like, leave it out there," and it's very easy to reject. Now, oftentimes, it's the people that are inside of the circle. How do you handle that inside of the sphere of influence? And that can be tough at times. I talk all the time about building borders, and oftentimes when you start a relationship, there are no borders. It's this open relationship, there's trust, whatever it might be, growth of life. But as you start to have awareness on these little inklings of like, oh, this is like not breathing into my life what I want to breathe in, or, here's some negativity around this when I'm actually not negative about it. An easy one is with work. People think that, as an entrepreneur, you work all the time. Right now it's middle of the night where you're at and you're working, and it's something that we love and enjoy. And when I met my wife, we really were able to come to an agreement that it's not work-life balance, you balance work into your life. And it's really kind of molding it all together. And so when you have that sphere of influence, it's like, "Oh, you guys always work." It comes from a negative standpoint, but you have to have this belief in yourself, number 1, on your own personal values and truths. And then you have to build the borders on where it's like, "Hey, I totally understand where you're coming from, but this is not how I see it." And then you explain it to them, and you build that border wall. And then at that point in time, if they continue to kinda, like, breach that border wall, then that's where it's like, "Hey, look, I have this understanding that, like, this is how I live my life, and you have to understand this." And as long as they respect the border, then that's really easy. But if they continuously try to, like, break down the border, then that's where a deeper conversation comes in, or maybe even potentially you have to push them out of that sphere of influence, because you have to really understand who is influencing your life and what type of life do you want to live. And oftentimes when you go through, an entrepreneurship or in sales, or things that your family might not understand, because it's not the 9 to 5, it's not the regular that we do. Sometimes like your friends won't understand. That's okay. It's okay to let them go. It's okay to, like, push them out of that sphere of influence and be able to just let them be a little bit. And a way that I see that is I see friendships as a book. Friendships and relationships are a book. I have a whole bunch of books over here in my bookshelf. And I can go pick up this book at any point in time and start reading chapters and be able to develop this relationship with that book again. And then as soon as I want to stop, I just close it and put it away. And that's how I see relationships as well. It's I can come pick up a relationship at any point in time, but also I can close it if it's not good for my life at that time, and be able to just put it down and continue on with life.
Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting analogy. You can pick it back up, or you can leave it in the shelf. Interesting. That for some reason immediately put my mind into like relationship upkeep and maintenance also. Um, because especially if you're in a field where you interact with a lot of people, many of which might be incredibly interesting, Mm, the sheer volume of connections, I believe, sometimes makes it hard. Now with technology, let's be fair, let's be honest. Like one of the biggest drivers initially for me to get on social media at all in the first place was the ability to kind of let other people know what's going on in my life without, me having to overspend myself to really connect with all of them, and vice versa, right? But when it comes to maintaining relationships and keeping them healthy, that's a big one that I find incredibly interesting, and something that you can fuck up easily if you're in your day to day and very focused. And there's like you don't oftentimes you don't not as an entrepreneur, you oftentimes not don't even give yourself the time of day, right? So you're hyper focused, which is great because you want to pursue that, right? Which is amazing. And you might not even be bothered by it, but outside people might not understand that, hey, why is there such a disconnect? Why are we not talking? Like, why am I only getting messages from you every once in a blue moon or something? So yeah, what's your approach? How do you keep relationships healthy?
Yeah, there's a couple different philosophies that I have with it, and one of them, you have to be an action taker first off, because oftentimes when you have a thought and you're like, "Oh, I should reach out to this person," 90% of us never do. But that's actually the awareness and that trigger point to then go like, "Hey, I need to reach out to this person." So I have two philosophies. One is anytime that I think about someone, I just shoot them a message. Hey, thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. Would love to connect soon. It's not even like an entrance to a conversation, it's more of me just saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. If we have some time, we could talk in the near future." I might not have time right now, though. The other one is I have a philosophy around your thought process, and if you think about, something 3 times in one day, it has to be done immediately. If you think about something 3 times in a week, it has to be done by the next week. If you think about something 3 times in a month, it has to be done the next month, because it's taking up your thought process, and your thought process is the most important thing that you have. It's yourself. And so if you're constantly thinking about something, you either need to take care of it or get rid of it. And if it's something that has meaning to you, it's about taking action on actually doing that topic right then and there. Because if, let's say, we're in deep work, or I have a sales call coming up, or something is coming up that you have to take care of, but yet your mind is thinking about, oh, I need to go talk to Jim, or I needed to go do, go talk to somebody. Your performance on that call, or during that task, or during that deep work session is not going to be your top performance. And so in reality, if you took that 15 minutes or that 5 minutes or even that 1 minute to shoot that message, to have that conversation, your performance in that next section of your day is going to be that much higher. And so I think that's a big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs maybe neglect at times, like, oh, I'll get to that later. But in fact, if you got to it now, and then maybe you're 5 minutes later, 2 minutes later, whatever, to that next task that you're doing, you're going to perform at a much higher level.
Makes a lot of sense. Clearing that mental, yeah, that headspace, clearing that up a little bit. Um, it's funny enough that we talk about this. I've been pondering that for a while, and I'm putting it into a concept. Just I call it closing the loops, because I would consider myself a very creative person, but yeah, my brain just loves to run in so many different directions, and so I might just open a loop without closing the one before. And that just, if that continues, you just load yourself up with, like, me personally, I load myself up with so many things, that then my mind is just like, okay, hold on, what's going on? It's just like if you have your browser, if you have like 100 tabs open or something like that, or more. Like your browser, you can have the best hardware on the planet, but if you overload it with enough tabs, it's just gonna crash and not perform. So I made a point recently to kind of yeah, just close those loops. So before I open a new one, I'm just gonna ask myself, hey, listen, is there another loop that I was supposed to close? Like, am I allowed to kind of open up myself to a new project or a new idea or whatever? Right? And it's tough. It's hard. You can definitely, like, one way I try to cope with it is to kind of see, like, the language itself, like cope to not start something new, because yeah, my brain is like, it's awesome, like, new stuff is awesome, why shouldn't you try and go do something new. Yeah, I just write that down. I just do like a mental little, like, decluttering of the mind. It's like called mind dump or brain dump. Many people use it. I don't know if you've heard about it, but essentially just writing everything down. So either it's like loops that you can close them or something that you're interested in, but then you're only allowed to kind of look and discover and to explore that once you've closed the tabs that are kind of running your system. And yeah, definitely talking to friends, absolutely one of those loops. And as you said it, like something that just takes, if it takes only a couple of seconds or under 2 minutes, just doing that real quick, shooting a message, first of all, it's out of your mind. Second of all, you maintain a relationship. It's a win-win. So yeah, I love that advice. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. I have, for work, I have an interesting one. I'm a big note, like, little notepad. So,
Hmm.
like, with work, anything that I have, kinda like that closed loop, I write down everything that I have to do, and then throughout the day, I just crumble it up and throw it away. And so it's
Hmm.
like I get that gratification of actually closing that loop. And this is, like, with, like, the day-to-day tasks. Now, stepping into the AI space, looking at all the different AI tools that are coming out and being able to utilize it for work, that's a big one that I've had to do with the tabs on, like, um, almost justifying, like, okay, I want to do research on this website or I want to do research on this tool, but is it beneficial and is it worth me actually keeping that tab open? Because sometimes I'll have like 100 tabs open. And then it's like, oh man, you have to declutter that space to actually have that focused work and um really like measuring. Like, okay, there's this new cool shiny object that's always here, especially in the AI space. And everything is just coming up. It's new, shiny, it's better, it's this, it's that. And you're like, "Okay, but does it matter?" And that's a big part where I'm I'm getting to is like, does it actually matter for my day to day, or is it just gonna distract me? And having to, like, really, like, close more of that loops almost forcefully because it's like, "Oh, it is actually distracting me from what I wanna be doing."
It, dude, yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. Honestly, like there's so much going on, and on the one hand, that's amazing. I mean, we live in such an exciting time. It's absolutely incredible the tools that we have at our fingertips, available at our fingertips. Oftentimes, even absolutely free. So you can be so creative with the tools that are available to you right now. As a creator, as a business owner, like there's so many things you can do, but because you have that much choice, it makes it incredibly difficult to actually move forward, right? So it's this analysis paralysis kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I feel you, man. Like my phone, every time I open it, there's probably some new tool that I should probably check out. Um, the way that I calm my nervous system down when it comes to that, I just go, okay, these are just tools, right? These are just tools. And interestingly enough, I think it's Elon Musk. He opened up a school for his kids and some of his friends' kids. And instead of going through a curriculum like this is what we're going to learn, they start with projects and then they see, okay, in order to do that, what do we need, right? So let's say they're building a workbench or something like that. Okay, cool. Well, we have to learn how to saw. We have to use some screws, like learn how to do that. You know, what tool do we need for this specific job? And that's how I approach AI at this moment. First of all, you definitely have the bigger picture, like what areas are now improving, how is the marketplace shifting. You do have to have that understanding. But then I just calm myself down by saying, listen, they're just tools. Whenever I need something done, I'm just going to use AI to look for AI to then present me a tool that's going to work for me right then and there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's a big one. That's definitely a big one. So when so okay, we talked about relationship maintenance, we talked about influencing people, we talked about what brought you into sales in the first place. Now you you went fairly quickly into high ticket sales, right? uh, what would you say is the difference between, like, let's say, lower mid ticket sales to high ticket sales?
Yeah, I think it's equally difficult to sell something that's like, 1,000 to maybe like $5,000 as it is to sell something that's 10,000 or more. It's really about finding the right clientele and then having that belief. Now, I would say the opportunities are a lot different. The high ticket space is a lot different now than it was like 3 to 4 years ago. 3 to 4 years ago, there were a lot of opportunities to get into high ticket sales at really great companies. and a lot of opportunity for companies to scale very easily with, marketing and funding and just a lot of different opportunities economically in high ticket sales. Whereas now, funding is a lot more scarce and marketing is a lot more difficult. And there's a lot of different factors that are going into high ticket sales, a lot more privilege as well. Everybody wants to be a closer. There's setter roles that are, you set to a closer, where not a lot of people want to be a setter. And so previously you could make a really great living with a set as a setter, and you still can. It's just a little bit more difficult and maybe needing a lot more training now than it was previously. And I think a big part of that also comes into the space in general. When you think about, as a listener, how many phone calls do you get a day? Like I probably get like 15 to 20 phone calls a day just from spam and just from like all of these other things that maybe you opted into, or, whatever is calling you. Though you're competing now inside of that. And so you're one of 40 calls that, someone's getting. Why would they answer your call? And so I think that space is gotten a lot more different and has evolved a lot more, where you actually do need more technology, you need to have more understanding. And then the skill level needed to get in is a lot higher, mainly because when you get someone on the phone, you then have to be able to keep that, and that's like a winner. Like someone picks up the phone, you have to get that person over the line. You have to get that person set, because it is a little bit more far and few in between now. And so I think the difference between high ticket and mid ticket is high ticket, there's a lot less volume, let's say. People that actually have the capability of purchasing with you. Whereas like a mid ticket, there might be more people, but there's less quality people, I would say, because there's not many people have, maybe $5,000 to put on a credit card or put onto, a debit card right now, or a wire transfer, whatever it might be. Whereas the mid ticket's a lot more interesting because you can do maybe like a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 on a monthly basis to be able to get going, but that then brings in more on a, business standpoint on longevity of the clientele, and can you actually keep that one client over, 12 months? Because in reality, like most people are probably actually spending more on a company now than they were previously, because they're spending more time in that company. And so it's kind of just an interesting space right now, where it's where do you want to be with it? And where, like, everything is hard. So it's like choosing your hard. Where do you want to be with your hard? Do you want to make 5 sales to make, a couple $1,000s, or do you want to make 1 sale to make a couple $1,000s? And where do you want to be with that? So it's definitely like an interesting space and what you have access to. I think school has opened up a lot of opportunities for people in like that mid-ticket area, where even if it's a couple $100s a month. Um, but this brings into like that longevity, and how does that whole process work with the sales rep. So it is very much so like a growing space, and being able to figure out where you want to be. And the thing that really drives the high ticket space is the high ticket coaching space specifically. Because when you think about how most people get into like sales, they come through a coaching program. They come through something that's going to like increase their network to be able to get them into it. And there's not a lot of coaching programs putting a lot of marketing out there right now. It's a lot organic. And so you really do have to find your way into the space now, where a year or two ago, there were millions of dollars going into the space every single month in marketing, just bringing new people in. And it's really died down a lot. And so it's kind of interesting where, in every aspect of the high ticket space, it's gotten harder to actually get in and perform, where it, as like 2 years ago, is very simple. Like you could, hire 30, 40 people super easily. Whereas now it's like hiring 5 people could be difficult, because the amount of people are just so much less coming in, which it's like the world of economics. It's the same thing on clientele. Well, if you have a hard time getting like sales reps in, and there's less volume of sales reps, there's less eyeballs actually on the space in general. And so I would say like the volume of clientele has decreased, which allows the front runners to really front run at the top. But there's like that middle gap of where it's like, where do you find that middle gap at, and who's actually going to perform well in the middle gap? And so I think that's where like the mid ticket has an interesting option to kind of fill that middle gap, whereas the high ticket is still like competing inside of it.
Interesting. Interesting. What would you say, what would your advice be for somebody that wants to get into sales, more specifically into high ticket sales? Like, I know a lot of people that would love to do that, but they wouldn't even know where to start. What's your advice when it comes to that?
My advice would be start with YouTube videos. Start with educating yourself first. A lot of people think that they can just jump straight into high ticket. It's not really that easy to just come in. You'll, as a business owner, will be able to snuff out really quickly, like who knows what they're talking about, who knows what they're not. But you don't have to go buy a high ticket coaching program anymore because all those high ticket coaches put everything out for free on YouTube. If you were to go on YouTube and let's say like an Andy Elliott or something and just go just indoctrinate yourself. Don't go try and learn from all these other different people. Learn from one person and just indoctrinate yourself. Um, I was a big believer on reading books. So I picked 2 books. Way of the Wolf was a big one for me, which is a straight line theory, and then Pitch Anything. And like I said, I studied Pitch Anything, and I made that my philosophy. And after reading Pitch Anything and really studying it, I had my biggest year. I made the most amount of money because I just stuck to one philosophy. Once you have your sales philosophy down, then go get into high ticket sales. And how would you do that? I would go get on Facebook and just there's a ton of options on Facebook. Now, there's a lot of scams out on Facebook nowadays. So you have to really vet if someone sends you a Telegram link, don't join it. It like the right opportunities will actually send you an interview link, will actually send you some of those links. The other thing that I would say is get on school and look up sales agencies. Go integrate. A lot of these sales agencies are looking for people to staff with businesses to keep the business relationship. So you just have to go and find something. It's one of those things of you can either go spend $10,000 and get into the game, but that doesn't mean that $10,000 is going to get you into the right game, or you can go put in the hours to go get into the game yourself. And there's so many people in the high ticket space now where you could really just throw a rock and hit someone and network with somebody. Meet someone like you, watch a podcast, find something and be like, "Hey, I'm interested in this. How do I get in?" So many people are interested in helping nowadays. So it's just take action. The biggest thing is indoctrinate yourself, have a sales philosophy and take action.
Awesome. Okay, so you go to YouTube where you find so much information about how sales work. You pick one specific teacher to not get confused about the learnings, apply them through high frequency, I'm assuming, and find somebody that gives you the opportunity to do that high frequency training, right? That to make it absolutely foolproof and bulletproof. How would you go about finding that one person that gives you a shot? What's the easiest way? Let's say you're anywhere in the world, you only have access to the internet. How do you get a sales opportunity?
Facebook groups. Go to Facebook groups, find, there's a lot of sales gurus on Facebook now. Find people that are doing podcasts, find people that are going out there and reach out to them. You'll either get to connect with them, you'll get to connect with someone on their team, go through all their followers, find people on their followers. Find a guy like me. You could go find a guy like me and look through all my followers. I have 2,000 people that are in the sales sales industry on my Facebook. Um, that's where I would go.
Nice. That's great advice. I mean, everybody can go to a Facebook group and just check out, like, just look for your sales and just find something. Yeah, Facebook is so underrated. Facebook groups are so underrated. People in Asia use it way more than Europe or the US, I believe. But yeah, there's incredible potential in there. Really good one. Okay. Now, the question comes, like, oftentimes people that are wanting to get into sales, they want to make money quickly, right? And that is the initial resistance. Like, how do you bridge the gap between your efforts and what you put in, but also putting money on the table enough so you can sustain yourself, right? So there is going to be a gap, um, and how do you bridge that? How do you negotiate that more with the person that's going to hire you, right? Because many so there's salespeople that want to have a baseline, and then there's salespeople that were commission based. From my experience, commission based, like only like the good people will only take commissions, right? Because they know their skill, and as long as they know that your product kind of delivers on what it promises, they know they're going to make money, right? So yeah, what's your advice on that person that found his first gig on Facebook, that is talking to the person and is trying to negotiate the terms?
So, in the setter space, if the company is doing well, a lot of setters will actually get a base pay nowadays. They'll get less commission, so don't expect like 5% commission on the base pay because that doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist at a legitimate company. What I would say is, if you're just like, how do I make money as fast as possible? Commission based, believe in yourself, and understand that sales is all about the person. It has nothing to do about the industry and nothing to do about the product. You can go make your first couple $1,000s just by selling people. Now, how are you going to make $10,000 a month? Yeah, you have to be an expert in your field and be able to understand the product to make $10,000 a month. But to just get started, confidence, enthusiasm, and hard work. That's those 3 things. You could go into any company and make a big impact, and when you start at a company, make the biggest mess possible. It's not your job to be great yet. It's not your job to be super fine and, go in and know everything. It's your job to come in and just put in the most amount of work possible, make the biggest mess possible, fail as much as you can, and find the quickest pathway to make money, and the company will go, "Okay, shoot." You'll actually help the company grow so much more because of doing that, that they'll actually put you in positions of where then you can negotiate for pay, you can negotiate for better leads, you can negotiate for whatever you want to put yourself in a better position.
Is beautiful advice. Beautiful advice. Going out there, messy action, repetition, get good at what it is that you're doing, and then once you're good, you're in a position of, in a strong position for negotiation. If a company sees that that you make money, that you print money for them, like they are gonna accommodate you. But yeah, not being afraid to fail the first couple of times, just getting those numbers in. And one of the things that, if I may add to this, that helped me in the past was not judging the process in the slightest, just following a system, getting the reps in. And in retrospect, you will understand, okay, this is what went wrong right there, right? But unless you have the reps in, that you're in no position to judge if what you're doing is effective or not. So yeah, awesome. Just hammering the phone. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So if you want to start making your first bucks online, find a Facebook group, find somebody that wants to give you a shot, set appointments for them. Maybe they give you a shot at closing the deals. Um, Hammer the phone as much as you can. Get the reps in, learn, get a good mentor online. You can find them for free and just practice what they preach. High frequency, hard work, and confidence. And you said one more thing that I really loved: hard work, confidence, and enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm. Yep.
Lovely, awesome. That's a killer recipe to get into the sales space. Amazing, wonderful, really really cool. So okay, now they got their first job, right? They found it. They have right now. If they're watching this, they know exactly how to go out there and find their first sales job, right? Now they are getting somebody on the phone. What is your what 3 things would you give somebody, would you tell somebody that they should do to be successful in those calls? And I know there's many intricacies, but maybe, we can talk about like energy, for example, how to deal with objections, and maybe just, the relationship building, that kind of thing, in a short amount of time.
Yeah. First thing I would do is read the book Pitch Anything. It's going to teach you how to talk with anybody, keep frame, and understand that the process of the conversation. So you have to have a process with it. Um, That's how you gain the process. The next one is tonality and just sounding friendly. If you get on the phone and you're like, "Oh, hey man, yep," like hanging up immediately, like nobody's talking. Being focused. Oftentimes, like if you're setting, you might be on like a dialer or something. And you're just kind of like going through the process. You have to be ready. You have to be ready to go and take action because as soon as someone picks up the phone, you're there. I have a rule for myself. If I answer a phone call and no one talks in 4 seconds, I hang up. So you got to be on top of it, talking, getting to action. The next one is understanding that no matter what anybody says to you, you need to gain deeper understanding. So if someone gives you an objection, you have to go 3 layers deep. Someone says, I'm not interested. Guess what? It's just an objection. Go 3 layers deep. What aren't you interested in? Most of the time, people don't even know what you're talking about, what you're selling them. So when they say they're not interested in what, you don't even know what I'm doing. And so gaining that deeper understanding, if they say it's not the right time, we'll realize it's the missed opportunity. So it's always the right time. And so not creating this mental construct on yourself that's going to stop you from sales. And it's just that battle between are you selling them or are they selling you? And you just have to win that battle.
Holding your frame, high energy, understanding what they need, understanding if you communicated exactly what it is that they need. Um, Wonderful. Very nice to the point. Makes beautiful sense. Mm, let's do this. Let's do a quick little round of Q and A's. Let's aim at um, getting at those hard hitting, controversial questions and answer them in 60 seconds or less. I'm just going to go through them in no particular order, and whatever comes to mind, just feel free to answer it any way you think is right. Is the hustle culture in sales actually killing your success?
I don't think the hustle culture is. I think the pivoting culture is. I think too many people pivot too often and don't focus enough on one thing to make it successful.
Lovely. Why do most salespeople suck at selling?
Most people suck at selling because they don't know what they're doing. They don't have a philosophy. And very similar in the pivoting, I have 9 to 10 different people that I've studied under, but yet you don't actually understand or really know what they're doing. So find one person, one pathway, and dominate that pathway, and that's how you'll be successful.
I love that. Okay, next up. Is cold calling dead or are salespeople just lazy?
Both. I would say the traditional way of cold calling is dead, and people are very lazy. There's a lot of technology that comes into it. You need the right systems to really be successful, but also you need to be on top of your game. You have to have good tonality. You have to be interesting. You can't be boring. And oftentimes you could be boring and still make money. Can't be boring anymore in today's day and age.
I love that. Okay, tonality. Let's talk about tonality a little bit. What tonality should you have in order to be able to sell like a master?
Tonality is all representation and a mirroring of your prospect. And so you should have the tonality of your prospect. If you jump on and someone's really low, match them. Or if they're really high, match them. But you should be able to have the ability to match the tonality and the enthusiasm and then control the prospect that you're talking with to be able to alleviate and elevate their tonality to where you want them to be.
Nice. So basically start at the level and then slowly raising it to your expectations and needs. Awesome. Fantastic. What's the biggest lie sales gurus are selling you?
That you can make $10,000 a month easily. I think everybody thinks that you can come into an opportunity and make $10,000 off the bat, which just isn't the reality. There's a lot of things that have to line up to make $10,000 a month. You have to work incredibly hard. It's not about 9 to 5. You're probably putting in 12 to 15 hours a day, just not working, but studying and really increasing your craft and understanding the process. And it's really about the lifestyle. And you can come in and make $10,000 a month if you incorporate the entire lifestyle, but not, you can't if you're just going to work the job.
Straight to the point, like an arrow. Fantastic. Can introverts actually be better salespeople than extroverts?
It depends. I think both are really great. I would say I'm more introverted now since I've started high ticket sales, but I've seen some extroverts that have zero sales ability and they just connect extremely well. So I think you could be very successful. It just really depends on you, yourself, and your belief. And if you believe you can be successful, then you can be. But if you don't believe it, you won't.
Now, what's the weirdest sales tactic that actually works?
Ooh, that's a good one. The weirdest sales tactic that actually works is, I think one that's underrated is getting people to say no. The more that you can get someone to say no and bring them to your side of the table actually helps you out a lot more. We're not in a day and age where people want to say yes anymore. So if you can get them to say no, but direct them to your pathway, you're probably going to win.
How does saying um, how does getting somebody to say no in a sales conversation actually benefit you?
It's disarming. So getting them to disarm the where they're at. Most people believe that, hey, are you interested in this? Well, yeah, I'm interested in it. But hey, would you be opposed about learning more about this? Well, no, I wouldn't be opposed. And so people are programmed to say no. So if you can get them to say no while saying yes at the same time, that's how you're going to be able to get them more in an understanding to you.
So you're kind of going around their defenses
Yep.
in a sense, in a way.
Little ninja
Okay.
tactics.
Ninja tactics. Loves it. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I love that. If someone's ghosting you in sales, how do you turn it around?
Mm. That's a good one. Consistency. You have to oftentimes you need to have at least 20 plus touch points to be able to bring someone back around. And so I've seen where, we'll message people 50 to 100 times. And on that 100th time, they will have no responses until that 100th time and come back and buy with us. So it's just about consistency, not letting off the gas and putting in the work. And with systems nowadays, it becomes very easy and simple to do. You just have to do it.
What kind of what kind of systems would you implement if you wanted to get back in touch with somebody that ghosted you?
A lot of automations. There's a lot of systems. I personally like to use high level. It's a CRM that you can build out automations in and be able to have wait periods and have sending messages out. It's where we also build our AI technology on top of where our AI tech can actually go in and respond to people 24/7. So finding the right systems and the softwares to benefit what you need. Not every system is going to be beneficial for you, and then being able to see what makes most sense long term. I think oftentimes people find the right system possibly, or they think it's the right system, but they're not thinking about it being the right system in 6 to 12 months, but like, oh, it could fix a problem right now. But that doesn't mean that you should incorporate a system into your business just because it's a right now solution.
Something a bit more, something a bit different. Let me ask you, what's the wildest sales close you've ever pulled off?
Oh, wildest sales close I've ever pulled off. I was on Zoom and I was talking with this guy and he just starts yelling at me. And I'm like probably 6 calls deep in the day. I'm yelling back at him and we're just kind of going back and forth, and he's asking me a bunch of questions, and the temperature is just rising in the room. And I had the awareness that I was like, what am I doing? And I literally just like took a deep breath, sat back in my chair and was like, "Hey man, so are we gonna take action or what?" And he literally just like completely calms down. You could see that he's just like, "Whoa, where did I get to?" And he's just like, "Yep, let's go and take action," because I had control over my personal emotions, and then I was able to control the situation and have a clear head and was able to get the close. I think that was probably the wildest one, was just going from like screaming at someone to then taking their credit card, like within the same like 5 minutes of each other.
That is pretty wild, in fact. Wow. Okay, 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 okay. That's an awesome story, man. Um, hmm. What would you say? What would you say is the fastest way to go from broke to six figures in sales?
Broke to 6 figures in sales. I would say right now is networking, getting your sales ability up, networking, finding the right company, and then locking in with that company. Most people try and find results in 30 days when you need to be able to see the long term vision of the company. And you might not be able to be on track to make 6 figures in the first 90 days, but in high ticket sales, you can compound so quickly and you can increase your paycheck so fast. I remember in my very first high ticket sales opportunity, month one, I maybe did like 20 to 30K in sales. Month two, I did 100K in sales. Month three, I did 200K in sales. And so I was able to just increase and compound so quickly. But if I just judge my results on month one, I would have quit. And so you really have to be able to build that pipeline and build the process and stay the pathway. In high ticket sales, people jump ship all the time. Like it's just too fast. People move a little too fast. They expect results too quickly. They don't understand the process enough. So once you're in an opportunity, lock in as long as there's good culture and there's trust between you and your manager or you and the business owner, whoever it is, and you go, "Hey, I'm willing to put in the time if you're willing to really show me the opportunity and be truthful with me at all times." That's the opportunity that I would stay with because you could make more money in the last 4 or 5 months of the year than you might have made in the first 6 months of the year.
That's amazing. Yeah, jumping from opportunity to opportunity kills so many people financially, because you never get to the point where you actually have skill set to make it work, because you haven't tried enough. But what you said is very important, to have trust with a company, with your partner that is giving you that opportunity, right? Because it has to be mutually beneficial. And obviously, somebody that hires somebody that um, works on a commission basis, they don't have the highest incentive to kind of make things work, right? They're just like, okay, he's helping me out. I don't have to pay him. Like, beautiful if it works out, but you're the one putting in that time. So yeah, I do believe trust and ethics also are incredibly important when it comes to building honest sales relationships in an environment that you actually want to be working in.
Yeah. And
Nice.
having a killer mentality. You're not gonna be successful in the high ticket space, especially if you're gonna be a princess. You have to have a killer mentality. If they give you an opportunity, everything's an opportunity, it's not a job. There are no jobs in the high ticket space. You have opportunities to be successful, and if there's leads, if there's something to sell, you just have to go out there and get it done because there's so much money to be made everywhere. In today's day and age, everybody wants to be given it. "Oh, hey, pack my calendar out," or, "Hey, do this." It's like, look, you could have 1,000 leads, you could bring in at least 100 of them, and that would make you 6 figures right there.
Okay, killer. I love that. Awesome, man. Awesome, man. All of the stuff like this. This is really good advice. I'm just going through some of the final questions here to kind of see. I mean, we basically already touched upon this, but what would you say? Is sales more about confidence or skill?
In the beginning, it's all about confidence, and when you first start off in an opportunity, you don't need any skill. If you have confidence and enthusiasm, that's what's gonna sell. After 60 to 90 days, you need the skill set to be able to keep that going on and be able to, bring in different tactics and different, like, ninja tools. Now, I will say today's day and age, you don't need a lot of ninja tactics or sales ability to be able to make a sell because people already know them. A lot of prospects, a lot of people, they're so acquainted to the different tactics that if you're just a real human being and you're just talking to them and hey, I genuinely just want to help you out and I'm excited about this product and I know it works, they're gonna buy from you. But if they feel like you're salesy and you're trying to use these tactics and trying to persuade them into a certain area, they're probably not going to move forward with you. So definitely enthusiasm and confidence up front, skill set on the back end to really then, grow your top line revenue.
Okay. Mm, we're pretty much at the last two questions here. One of them is more broad, and the other one are very specific. So, what's the secret to making people want to buy from you?
Secret to making want people want to buy from you would be understanding their problem and being able to almost act as if a therapist. Like, "Hey, I understand. I'm consoling you with that problem, and then you are also the solution." And so you have to understand their problem completely and then be able to show them eloquently that you are the solution. And it doesn't matter what you're selling because you could do anything today. Everyone is making money in every single niche. You can make money anywhere doing anything. And so you just have to believe that number one, my product makes money. And number two, my product can make you money. And if you understand those two things, then all you have to do is take care of the person and go, hey, what are your problems? Totally understand that. You know, hit them with a little bit logical and going like, would it make sense to be able to do something like this to solve that problem? Great. Now that's already them selling themselves.
Awesome. So with these questions, we kind of, well, with this question specifically, we basically at one of the things that many people are struggling with. Um, again, like mindset really takes care of a lot of those. But to be very specific, because I know people are going to ask these questions and you've heard them millions of times before. But yeah, objection handling. For example, what's the best way to handle? I need to think about it.
Well, the first thing is like, what do they need to think about? Like, what specifically, do you not understand something? Understanding more of what they want to see. Oftentimes, when they say, I need to think about it, they're going to ask you for an email. Like, hey, could you send me an email? Well, what do you want on that email? Okay, well, hey, I was so excited about talking with you that I actually didn't even get into that side of the process. Let me walk you through that right now. And then you just walk them through it. Any objection, you need to have a why, what, and when. If you ask those, "Why are you asking this?" or like, "What are you specifically asking about this?" When do you feel like, that might be an issue, or when do you feel like, you would actually be ready to take action if you knew this worked? And being able to get them to that point, it's all just a smokescreen. The "I need to think about it" means that they don't understand what you're selling. So then you need to understand that you have to dive deeper to figure out what they don't understand and then provide them that information. And then basically just keep circling around, being like, "Okay, gotcha. Well, now that you have this information, is there anything else? Is there anything else that's stopping you? What else? What other information do you want?" Because ultimately, if they get off the phone with you, you are the number one source of information for them. They're not going to go find it somewhere else. They're not going to look it up. I've gotten off of hundreds of sales calls. I've never once gone back and looked at a website. I've never gone back and looked at a YouTube video, anything like that. It's your job. If you're on the phone and you're in that closing argument, it's your job to close them. And that's why you get paid the big bucks.
Awesome. So really understanding at the end of the day, really understanding them. Another really popular one is, you know, how do you get over the objection of I need to talk to my wife or I need to talk to my husband?
Yeah, the first thing is understanding their dynamic. So, okay, gotcha. Totally understand that you need to go talk to your wife. Now, I'm curious, like, how do you guys typically go about like making big decisions like this? When you went and bought a car, did your wife need to be there? When you go and do whatever it might be, like find something that they can relate to and ask them about it. Now, okay, I understand that you and your wife make decisions this way. Now, I'm curious, would your wife be opposed if you made a decision where you were able to make an extra, 5 or 10 grand a month, whatever you're selling? And if they're like, no, no, she wouldn't be opposed to that. Well, then I'm curious, like if you went back to her and said, hey, look, I made this decision because we're able to make this amount of money and we're able to solve these problems in our life. Are you okay if I continue with it? And maybe you give them a 2 or 3 day, or you take a deposit, whatever it might be, but get some type of commitment at that point in time. But if they're like, "Hey, look, I make all of my decisions with my wife. I make all of my decisions with my husband, and that's just the end of it," then that's how they make their decisions, and you have to understand that and be okay with it. Now the biggest thing is oftentimes we wanna handle that objection before the call even happens. Inside of the marketing, inside of the setter process, is there anybody else that needs to be on the call for you to make a sound decision? Now, if you do have that process set up and they say no, then you can use their words against them. And like, hey, when you went through this process and you talked to John in the setting process, he asked you if you needed anyone to make this decision and you had said no. So I'm kind of curious, at what part did you feel like you could make the decision by yourself? And at what part do you feel like you needed your wife to make this decision? And gaining understanding, because once you gain understanding on their life, then you understand how to handle the objection. But if you just try and handle the objection without the understanding, that's when the salesiness comes across, and that's when they're automatically gonna leave and not talk to you again.
Interesting, interesting. So I would probably, yeah, we'll also try to understand like who is the decision maker here. Uh,
Mhm.
well, the more the more people are involved in a sales process, the slower it goes. Usually, that's my experience. So personally, I don't really like to talk to multiple people at the same time because it becomes like this weird dynamic of like who of those two can come up with more questions than the other one, basically. So I personally try to avoid that because I want to have one person that I can talk to that has all the information from me that they need, and I know all of their concerns without like being distributed between two people, because that makes the whole process on both sides way more complicated because the information is not distributed equally, and things can just not be touched upon as in depth as needed for a person to make a decision. So I believe it becomes harder the more people are involved in that process. But what is your take? If somebody actually says, you know what, I need to have my spouse on this, what's like, do you even, do you even get two people on the same call? Like, how do you handle that occasion?
I love getting spouses on the call because oftentimes, there's this rule in beach volleyball that when you're playing with your partner, one of the partners has the middle line, and you discuss that beforehand. In most relationships, people don't discuss who actually makes the decision. They both feel like they make a decision. And I actually personally love getting couples on the call. Now, I typically would like to have the initial discovery and then have the spouse come into it and then go over like a brief discovery and let them know, fill them in on the conversation, continue going. Because there's one tactic at the very end is that the objection that they're always going to say is, "Oh, we need to go and talk about it." Beautiful. That's great. Why don't you take 2 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and talk about it? I'm gonna leave the room. And I respect them. I will actually go and leave the room. And I have almost 100% close rate when I can get both couples on because 'cause they'll talk about it. I've just sold both of them. The talking about it is just for them to get off the call and never talk to me again. So it's meaningless objection. You can show them that why they need it, how they're gonna make money, and get them to make that decision. They're gonna start to talk and sell each other. Maybe you listen in on the door and just kinda see who's kind of running the conversation here, and then when you come back in, then it's easier to sell that one person. And you go in and you talk to them and go, "Hey, what what was the conversation like? Where are you guys feeling? Okay, does all of it make sense?" And then you can get them on. And it's for me, it's quite easy to close them at that point in time because they're both on the call, they have the information. It doesn't matter who the decision maker is because in that 5 minutes, they just decided together that they're gonna move forward.
Nice, nice. I love that. I love also how you, we were talking about this earlier. Uh, kind of your frame, how you see things, and selling people on your idea, and that was a perfect example for that. I was like, oh, I don't really like if there's multiple people on the phone. It's kind of, it's more work. It's harder to get the point across. And you're like, no, actually, I love that because then there's actually things moving forward. So it's beautiful. Like that was selling your idea in action, and that might be, and it can be very beneficial. Like for me, for example, I can now take your approach with proper reasoning and internalize that and see, okay, listen, this this situation can be viewed from a completely different perspective, and I think that beautifully encapsulates everything that we just talked about today, which is getting outside perspective, getting information, practicing that, listening in, putting yourself into a different kind of point of view, and learning continuously, right? And building on top of that, and using all the great that you find around you to make it yours and your own. And yeah, surrounding yourself with absolute killers. So that's why I'm really happy to have you on this call, on this podcast today. Absolutely great advice, 100%. Yeah, to the point, and yeah, just lovely talk to you about this, man. Um, yeah, uh, with that being said, we went through quite a bit today. We went through how you got into sales in the first place, how you switched over to high ticket sales, what the differences between mid and high ticket sales, how to get your first client as somebody that has never done sales before, how to get your repertoire up, how to get the reps in, what your mentality should be, specific objections. So now that you should be able, after watching this podcast, to go out there and make your first couple of $1,000, right? Maybe not the first month, right? But maybe the second, the third, the fourth, right? So really go out there, absolutely messy action, but massive action. So yeah, Jared, is there anything that you would add to that kind of like an ending statement?
Believe in yourself every single day, put in the work. You need to, in every aspect of your life, just increase it 1%. And at the end of the year, your entire life is going to look totally different and have utmost confidence in yourself and belief that you can achieve anything. So go out there and
Love
get it.
I love that so much. Jared, like this is your time to, let people know where people can find you or see what you're currently up to. So yeah, let people know where you are on the internet.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at ITS Jared Harris. Send me a DM. If you guys are looking for a sales position, you guys can also message me. You can find me on Facebook as well at Jared Harris and shoot me a DM and we can get you guys locked in with a sales position.
That sounds amazing. Guys, you now have all the knowledge that you need, basically. Just need to get in the reps. You already have a connection. You know where to find Jared. Bro, it was absolutely an pleasure having you on the call today. Thanks for all this amazing information. And yeah, man, this might not have been the last one. I'm really happy to jump on another one with you sometime soon. And thanks for being on the pod today.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It was a pleasure.
100%. Okay, brother. I see you next time. Take care. And with that being said, you guys, good luck with your life and your business creation.